The signal came through during third shift when most of the Galactic Council's monitoring stations ran on minimal staff. Rihanna had been watching the displays for 6 hours straight, her large eyes tracking the usual patterns of commercial traffic and scientific expeditions. The Luminary were known for their patience and attention to detail, which made them perfect for monitoring work. Nothing ever happened during third shift anyway. Then the console lit up with red warnings. Rihanna's 4 delicate fingers danced across the controls, her bioluminescent skin flickering with concern. The signal was weak and broken, coming from the outer Veil region where almost nobody traveled. The area was too dangerous, too unpredictable. She enhanced the signal and felt her breathing tubes constrict with worry. It was a Quinn vessel. The biometric signatures were unmistakable. The Quinn were brilliant mathematicians and theoretical physicists, but they were also fragile. Their bodies needed carefully controlled environments. They couldn't handle temperature extremes or physical stress. Most species considered them delicate, though nobody said it to their faces. Rihanna forwarded the signal to the Council emergency channel and began running analysis protocols. The data made her want to close her eyes and pretend she hadn't seen it. The Quinn ship had crashed on an uncharted moon. The automated distress beacon was sending environmental readings that seemed impossible. Gravity at 2.8 times galactic standard, atmosphere filled with sulfuric compounds and trace amounts of hydrochloric acid, surface temperatures ranging from 140 degrees in daylight to minus 150 at night. Seismic activity indicating active volcanism. The readings went on, each one worse than the last. Within an hour, representatives from across the Galactic Council had gathered in the emergency chamber. Rihanna watched from her monitoring post as the debate began. She could see them on her screen, dozens of species all talking at once. The Chiric delegate, a being that looked like a mantis made of copper and standing on 2 legs, clicked its mandibles in distress. Its translator converted the sounds to words everyone could understand. This moon should not exist in a stable orbit. The conditions are contradictory. How can it have both volcanic activity and such extreme cold cycles? A Velan representative, existing as a cloud of gas contained in a pressure suit, pulsed with orange concern. The chemistry alone would kill most known species in minutes. The Quinn have perhaps hours before their environmental suits fail. The tall counselor, a crystalline being that sparkled under the chamber lights, chimed in with a sound like breaking glass. We must attempt a rescue. They are citizens of the Council. We cannot abandon them. But how? That was the question nobody could answer. The Chiric couldn't handle the gravity. The Veln would dissipate in that atmosphere. The Tal would crack in those temperature swings. Species after species reviewed the data and reached the same conclusion. A rescue mission would just create more casualties. Rihanna felt sick as she listened. 7 Quinn scientists were dying on that terrible moon, and the greatest collection of intelligent species in the galaxy couldn't save them. They began discussing memorial procedures instead. It felt wrong, but what choice did they have? The human liaison wasn't even in the chamber. The Terran Expeditionary Force maintained a small diplomatic office on the station, but they rarely participated in council sessions. Most species found humans unsettling. They came from a Category 9 Deathworld, a planet that actively tried to kill everything living on it. Earth had extreme weather, dangerous predators, toxic plants, and natural disasters that would devastate most civilized worlds. Humans had evolved in hell and somehow built a civilization anyway. Nobody expected the hologram that suddenly appeared in the center of the council chamber. Admiral Samantha Reeves materialized in full uniform, her dark skin and close-cropped hair giving her a severe appearance. Humans always looked predatory to other species. Their eyes faced forward like hunters. Their teeth included sharp incisors meant for tearing meat. They stood upright in a way that suggested aggression rather than peace. Council members, Reeves said without preamble, we've intercepted the Quinn distress signal. Our nearest vessel is already en route to the crash site. Estimated arrival in 14 hours. Please prepare medical facilities for Quinn physiology. We'll need your doctors standing by when we return. The chamber fell silent. Rihanna could see the confusion on every alien face. The Chirrut delegate finally spoke. "Admiral, with respect, have you reviewed the environmental data? The moon's conditions are lethal to most known biology." Reeves nodded. "We've seen worse. Our team is prepping now. They'll handle it." "Handle it?" The Veln's gases swirled with disbelief. "Admiral, the gravity alone exceeds what most species can survive. The atmosphere would burn through standard environmental suits. The temperature fluctuations would cause system failures in our best equipment." The human's expression didn't change. "Understood. We've operated in similar conditions before. Our gear is rated for worse." Rihanna pulled up Earth's data file, something she'd never bothered to read before. Her eyes widened as she scrolled through the information. Gravity at 1.0, which seemed normal until she read that humans evolved under it. Their bodies were built for that crushing weight. Atmospheric composition included oxygen at levels that would be toxic to many species. Temperature ranges that swung from deserts hot enough to kill most life to Arctic zones cold enough to freeze methane. Earth had active volcanoes, massive storms, earthquakes, and something called hurricanes that could level entire cities. The planet had survived 5 mass extinction events and life had bounced back every time. Humans had evolved alongside predators that could kill them easily. They'd fought diseases, famines, and each other for millions of years, and they called it home. The tall counselor chimed with skepticism. "Even if your species can physically survive, Admiral, reaching the crash site across 47 kilometers of hostile terrain seems impossible in the time available." Reeves smiled, and Rihanna noticed that humans showed their teeth when they were confident. It looked like a threat display. "We've already calculated the route. It's challenging but doable. Our people train for this kind of operation." "You train to walk through hell?" the Chirrut asked. "We call it search and rescue," Reeves replied. "We'll contact you from the surface, Defiant Dawn out." The hologram vanished. The council chamber erupted in debate. Half the delegates thought the humans were crazy and would just add to the casualty count. The other half wondered if maybe, just maybe, the Deathworlders actually could do the impossible. Rihanna pulled up the tracking data for the human ship. It was moving fast, faster than most vessels would dare in this region of space. She routed the trajectory to the main display. 14 hours until the humans reached Harrow 9. The Quinn had maybe 18 hours of life support remaining. It would be close. Rihanna began preparing monitoring protocols. If the humans were really going to attempt this, someone needed to document it. Either as a rescue operation or as a cautionary tale about Deathworlder arrogance. She had a feeling it would be something the galaxy would remember either way. The loading bay of the Defiant Dawn smelled like oil and ozone. Nadia Okonkwo walked through the organized chaos with practiced ease, checking equipment and personnel with quick efficiency. She'd grown up in Earth's deep ocean colonies where pressure could crush metal and darkness was absolute. She understood hostile environments in her bones. "Status report," she said, not raising her voice. Everyone heard her anyway. Hiro Tanaka looked up from his medical supplies, his hands moving quickly as he packed specialized equipment. "Quinn physiology is tricky. They need humidity between 60 and 70%, temperatures around 22 degrees, and their oxygen mix is different from ours. I've got atmospheric converters ready and medical protocols adapted. If their injuries are too severe, though, we might lose them anyway." "We won't lose them," Nadia said simply. Next. Diego Silva stood beside a rack of weapons that looked too large for normal use. The lieutenant was built like a tank, muscular and solid. "We've got resonance rifles for the local predators. The preliminary scans suggest silicon-based life forms. Traditional projectiles won't work well, but if we can match their crystalline frequency, we can shatter them. Also packed plasma cutters in case we need to breach the Quinn hull." Amy Park was underneath a 6-legged walker vehicle, her voice echoing from beneath the machine. "Transport's ready. This beauty can handle the gravity and terrain. I've reinforced the suspension and added extra power cells. We could drive through a lava flow if we needed to." "Let's hope we don't need to," Nadia replied. She moved to the last member of the team. "Jimmy, how's our approach looking?" James Mitchell was reviewing flight data on a datapad. his face illuminated by the blue glow. He'd trained as a pilot in the upper atmosphere of Venus, where winds could tear ships apart and heat could melt titanium. Harrow 9's atmosphere is nasty but predictable. Sulfuric acid means we'll need to keep the hull coating fresh. I can get us down and back up, but we need to move fast. The longer we're on the surface, the more damage we take. Nadia nodded and activated her comm unit. Bridge, this is Okonkwo. Team is ready. Begin final approach. The ship shuddered slightly as it adjusted course. Nadia felt the familiar tension before a dangerous operation. Not fear exactly, but heightened awareness. Every detail mattered now. Her console beeped with an incoming transmission. She accepted it and saw a Chirrut face appear on the screen. The being looked agitated, its mandibles clicking rapidly. Captain Okonkwo, I am Tillisk, Council Rescue Coordinator. I must express serious concerns about your mission parameters. Hero walked over, curious. He had the relaxed manner of someone who'd seen everything. What concerns? Tillisk's translator worked overtime to convey the being's distress. You are treating this as a routine operation. I have reviewed Harrow 9's environmental data 17 times. The surface conditions exceed safety thresholds for every species in Council records. You will be walking through what my people would consider an active disaster zone. We've reviewed the data too, Hero said mildly. It's definitely challenging. Challenging. Tillisk's whole body trembled. The gravity alone would crush most beings. The atmosphere would dissolve our tissues. The temperature swings would cause immediate system failures. You speak as if these are minor inconveniences. Nadia leaned into the screen. Coordinator Tillisk, I appreciate your concern, but my team has trained for exactly this kind of environment. Diego grew up on Mars before it was fully terraformed. Amy spent her childhood on Titan. Jimmy flies through Venus storms for fun. Hero worked in the Mariana Trench on Earth where the pressure would flatten most ships. And you? Tillisk asked. I've walked on the ocean floor where the pressure is over 1,000 times Earth's atmosphere. I've worked in conditions where one crack in your suit means instant death. Harrow 9 is dangerous, yes, but it's manageable. Tillisk was silent for a moment. You speak of this terrible place as if it were merely uncomfortable. Hero smiled. We come from Earth. Compared to some places back home, Harrow 9 is actually pretty mild. No tsunamis, no hurricanes, no plate tectonics causing earthquakes. The predators are straightforward. We've dealt with worse. How? The question came out as a whisper. How did your species survive long enough to reach space? Stubbornness mostly, Hero replied, and looking out for each other. When your world is actively trying to kill you, you learn to work together or you die. The transmission ended shortly after. Tillisk seemed too shocked to continue the conversation. Nadia turned back to her team. All right, people, suit up. We go in 30 minutes. The exosuits were engineering marvels, built from lessons learned across a dozen hostile environments. Amy had modified them specifically for this mission. Heavy plating to handle the gravity, reinforced joints to prevent stress fractures, atmospheric filters that could process almost any gas mixture, thermal regulation systems that could handle extreme swings. Diego strapped into his suit with the ease of long practice. You know, this reminds me of training on Europa. Ice moon radiation, sub-zero temperatures. The instructor told us that if we could survive Europa, we could survive anywhere. Was he right? Amy asked, checking her suit seals. Mostly, though Europa didn't have predators trying to eat us. That you know of, Jimmy said with a grin. I always thought those ice formations looked suspicious. Nadia listened to the banter with half her attention while reviewing the mission plan. 47 kilometers from landing site to crash location. Rough terrain with active volcanic zones. Unknown number of predators. Time limit before the Quinn life support failed completely. Variables everywhere, but that was normal. You planned for what you could and adapted to everything else. The ship began its descent. Nadia felt the turbulence as they hit Harrow 9's upper atmosphere. The hull groaned under the stress. Acidic compounds in the air started eating at the outer coating immediately. Through the viewport she could see the moon's surface. Gray and black volcanic rock stretched to the horizon. Cracks in the ground glowed red with magma. Geysers of sulfurous gas erupted randomly. In the distance, crystalline formations caught the dim light from the system's distant star. Beautiful in a terrifying way, Hero murmured. Target the landing zone, Nadia ordered. Let's get down there and bring those scientists home. The defiant dawn descended through clouds of acid and heat. Jimmy's hands were steady on the controls, making constant micro-adjustments. The ship touched down with barely a tremor. We're down, he announced. Hull integrity at 92%. We've got about 20 hours before the acid eats through critical systems. Nadia activated the cargo ramp. Then we better hurry. Team, move out. They stepped onto the surface of Harrow 9, and Nadia immediately felt the gravity trying to pull her down. The exosuit compensated, servos whining slightly. The air was a yellowish haze. Her suit's external sensors screamed warnings about toxicity and temperature. She took a deep breath of recycled air and smiled. 47 kilometers to go. Let's walk. Behind them, the defiant dawn settled onto the hostile ground, ready to wait. Ahead of them, somewhere across a landscape that would kill most living beings, 7 Quinn scientists were running out of time. The Deathworlders had come to bring them home. The only question was whether they'd make it in time. Prill had stopped checking the chronometer. Every time she looked, another hour had passed and their situation had grown worse. The crashed research vessel groaned around her, metal contracting and expanding as Harrow 9's temperature swung between extremes. Through the cracked viewport, she could see the alien landscape that would be their tomb. The other 6 Quinn scientists huddled together in the main cabin, trying to conserve warmth and share oxygen. Their environmental suits had never been designed for this kind of abuse. Prill was the expedition leader, which meant watching her team slowly die was her responsibility. Prill, one of her colleagues whispered. His name was Denel, a young mathematician with brilliant insights into probability theory. Now he was just cold and scared. The radio. There's transmission. Prill dragged herself to the communications panel. Their distress beacon was still broadcasting, but they'd received no response. The council had probably written them off. Standard procedure when rescue was impossible. But the radio was crackling with voices, human voices. Copy that, Defiant Dawn. We're at marker 7, about 19 kilometers from the crash site. Terrain is rougher than the scans showed, but we're making good time. Another voice responded, female and calm. Understood. Life signs from the Quinn vessel are weakening. Increase pace if possible. Roger, switching to double time. Prill's breathing tubes fluttered in confusion. Humans were coming here? That made no sense. The environmental data alone should have made this moon forbidden to any sane species. Yet the radio chatter suggested the humans were not only on the surface but actively hiking toward them. They're really coming, Denel whispered, hope flickering in his large eyes. Prill wanted to share that hope. But she'd studied humans in her research. They were Deathworlders, apex predators from a nightmare planet. If they were really out there in Harrow 9's hellish environment, they were probably looking for salvage or scientific specimens. Quinn bodies would be interesting data points. She kept that thought to herself and listened to the radio. 19 kilometers away, Diego Silva pushed through another sulfur geyser field, his suit's sensors screaming warnings he'd learned to ignore. The ground beneath his feet was sharp volcanic rock that would shred normal boots. His exosuit's reinforced soles handled it fine. Contact right, Amy called out. Diego turned and saw movement among the crystalline formations. The predators were beautiful in a deadly way. Like living sculptures of silicon and mineral compounds. They moved on 4 legs, each step precise and calculated. Pack hunters, according to the scans. 3 of them emerged from behind a rock formation, their bodies reflecting the dim light in rainbow patterns. They were each about the size of a large earth wolf, but that's where the similarity ended. These creatures were living crystal, their internal structures visible through translucent skin. Anyone else think they look like fancy decorations? Jimmy asked over the comm. Fancy decorations that want to eat us, Hero replied. He had his medical scanner out taking readings. Interesting. Their biology is completely silicon-based. Carbon life like us probably tastes terrible to them. Then why are they stalking us? Amy asked. Territorial, maybe? Or just curious? The lead creature made a sound like wind chimes and charged. Diego's rifle came up smoothly. He'd set the resonance frequency based on the scans, but this was the first field test. He fired, and the sonic pulse hit the creature square in the chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks appeared in its crystalline structure, spreading like a spider web. The creature shattered into 1,000 pieces. The other two attacked simultaneously from different angles. Amy took one with her rifle while Jimmy used a plasma cutter in close combat. The superheated blade sliced through crystal like butter. Effective, Nadia observed. She hadn't drawn her weapon, trusting her team to handle the threat. But we're making noise. More will come, she was right. Diego could see movement in the distance, dozens of reflections among the rocks. The local predators were gathering, drawn by the sounds of conflict or death or whatever motivated silicon-based pack hunters. We keep moving, Nadia decided. Fight only when necessary. Our priority is reaching the Quinn. They pushed forward at a faster pace. The gravity was exhausting even with the exosuits helping. Diego had trained in high-gravity environments, but this was still hard work. Each step required conscious effort. His legs burned with the strain, yet nobody complained. This was the job. You pushed through pain and exhaustion because people needed help. The terrain grew worse. They crossed a field where the ground was still cooling from recent lava flows. Heat radiated through their suit insulation, then through a canyon where the walls were so narrow they had to move single file while acid rain fell from the yellow sky. Hero monitored the Quinn life signs constantly. They're fading. We need to move faster. We're already at maximum sustainable pace, Nadia replied. We go faster and we'll be too exhausted to help them when we arrive. Then we hope maximum sustainable is enough. Back in the crashed ship, Prill listened to the humans' progress reports. They spoke calmly about conditions that should have killed them. Acid rain was a minor inconvenience. The gravity was manageable. The predators were handled. Either they were insane or incredibly tough. Probably both, Prill, Denel said weakly. I don't think I'm going to make it. The cold. She moved to his side and tried to share her body heat. Though Quinn didn't generate much warmth. The humans are close. Just hold on a little longer. Why are they doing this? We're nothing to them. Prill didn't have an answer. In her experience, species acted in self-interest. The humans gained nothing from this rescue except risk and expense. It made no logical sense, unless Deathworlders operated on different logic entirely. The radio crackled again. We've got visual on the crash site. 8 kilometers out. How are they doing, Defiant Dawn? Critical. Multiple life signs are failing. You need to get there now. A pause. Then a different voice, rough and determined. All right, people. We're going to run the last 8 kilometers. I know it's brutal in this gravity, but we don't have a choice. Check your suits, watch your footing, and let's move. Prill heard the strain in his voice even through the translator. Running in this gravity while wearing heavy suits through hostile terrain should be impossible. Humans were attempting it anyway. The next hour was torture. Prill listened to the humans push themselves beyond reasonable limits. Their breathing grew labored. Someone fell and got back up. They kept going. Through the viewport, she finally saw lights in the distance. 5 figures in heavy armor, moving with exhausted determination through the volcanic wasteland. They were surrounded by crystalline predators, at least a dozen of the creatures stalking them. The humans fought while running, stopping only long enough to shatter the attackers before pushing forward again. It was the most brutal display of stubborn will Prill had ever witnessed. Diego stumbled as his legs finally started to give out. The gravity and exertion had pushed him past his limits. Amy grabbed his arm and hauled him upright without breaking stride. Come on, big guy. Almost there. I know, he gasped. Just give me a second. We don't have a second. Move your legs, he moved his legs. Nadia reached the crashed Quinn vessel first. The hull was breached in several places, and the internal systems were failing. She activated her external speakers. Quinn scientists, this is Captain Nadia Okonkwo of the Terran Expeditionary Force. We're here to get you out. Please prepare for extraction. Inside the ship, Prill started laughing. It was exhaustion and relief and disbelief all mixed together. Denel looked at her with concern. They really came, she said through her laughter. The Deathworlders really came for us. Outside, Hero was already scanning the hull looking for the safest entry point. Jimmy and Amy set up a defensive perimeter while Diego caught his breath. Night was falling on Harrow 9, and the temperature was dropping fast. They had maybe an hour before the cold became lethal even for humans, but they'd made it. Now they just had to get everyone home alive. Hero forced open the damaged airlock with a plasma cutter, the metal screaming as it gave way. The interior of the Quinn vessel was dark and cold. His suit lights cut through the gloom as he stepped inside, medical kit already in hand. 7 pairs of large eyes stared at him from the shadows. The Quinn were huddled together, their skin pale and their breathing shallow. They looked terrified, which made sense. To them, Hero probably looked like an armored monster emerging from a nightmare. He raised his hands slowly and detached his helmet. The air inside the ship was breathable for him, barely. Cold and thin, but survivable for a few minutes. He wanted them to see his face. "My name is Hiro Tanaka. I'm a doctor. We're here to help you." One of the Quinn, slightly larger than the others, pushed herself forward. Her movements were weak and uncoordinated. "Please," she whispered in heavily accented standard speech. "We surrender. Take what you want. Just make it quick." Hiro felt his heart break a little. They thought this was a raid. They thought he was here to hurt them. "No," he said gently. "You don't understand. We got your distress call. We came to rescue you." Prill stared at the human. He looked strange to her eyes, with his forward-facing predator gaze and his too many teeth. But his expression was soft, concerned. His hands moved carefully as he knelt beside Denel, who was in the worst condition. "This one first," Hiro said, pulling out medical equipment. "What's his name?" "Denel," Prill managed. He's very cold." Hiro wrapped a thermal blanket around the young Quinn and attached a medical scanner. "Okay, Denel, I've got you. Your core temperature is way too low, but we can fix that. Just stay with me." His hands worked quickly, inserting an IV line adapted for Quinn physiology. Warm fluids began flowing into Denel's system. Hiro moved to the next scientist, then the next, his movements efficient and practiced. Outside, Diego was having a worse time. The crystalline predators had realized that the humans were distracted and vulnerable. They attacked in waves, coordinated and intelligent. "I've got at least 20 contacts," Amy called out, her rifle firing in controlled bursts. Each shot shattered a creature, but more kept coming. "They're learning our patterns." Diego set up behind a piece of wreckage and laid down covering fire. The resonance weapons were effective, but the predators had started moving erratically, making them harder to hit. One got close enough that he had to use his plasma blade, the superheated edge slicing through crystal. "Jimmy, how's the sky looking?" Nadia asked, her own weapon tracking targets. Jimmy had his scanner pointed upward. "Not good. Temperatures dropping faster than predicted. We've got maybe 40 minutes before it hits lethal levels even for us, and there's a weather system moving in. Looks like an acid storm." "Of course there is," Diego muttered, shooting another predator. "Why wouldn't there be?" Inside the ship, Hiro had stabilized most of the Quinn scientists. They were still in bad shape, but no longer in immediate danger of dying. He explained the situation to Prill while he worked. "We need to get you back to our ship. It's 8 kilometers from here. The journey will be difficult, but your ship can't protect you anymore." Prill looked around at her team. They could barely stand, let alone walk 8 kilometers through hell. "We can't make that distance." "Not in these conditions." "I know," Hiro said calmly. "That's why we brought transport." Amy had been modifying the 6-legged walker vehicle while the others fought. She'd converted the cargo area into a makeshift passenger compartment, installing life support systems and thermal protection. "It's not pretty," she announced over the comm, "but it'll keep them alive during transport. We can fit all 7 if they don't mind being cozy." "They'll mind being dead more," Nadia replied. "Get them loaded." Moving the Quinn from their ship to the walker was a delicate operation. Hiro and Amy carried them one by one, while Diego, Jimmy, and Nadia maintained the defensive perimeter. The predators were getting bolder, sensing weakness. One creature made it past Diego's fire and lunged at Amy while she was carrying a Quinn scientist. She couldn't drop her patient and couldn't reach her weapon. Time seemed to slow as the crystalline predator's jaws opened wide. Jimmy's plasma cutter took the creature's head off in mid-leap. The body crashed at Amy's feet and shattered. "Thanks," she gasped. "Buy me dinner when we get home," Jimmy replied, already turning to face the next threat. Prill found herself strapped into the walker's passenger compartment along with her team. The humans had thought of everything. Oxygen mixture corrected for Quinn biology. Temperature maintained at comfortable levels. Even the humidity was right. Through the transparent canopy, she watched the humans fight. They moved like a trained unit, each one covering the others. When Diego's weapon overheated, Amy covered him while he switched to backup. When Jimmy stumbled in exhaustion, Nadia was there to steady him. They fought like people who'd done this 1,000 times before. Smooth and professional even in hell. All aboard, Hero announced, climbing into the driver's seat of the walker. Nadia, we're ready to move. Copy that. Everyone fall back to the walker. Fighting retreat. The humans backed toward the vehicle in a careful formation, still firing at the advancing predators. Diego was the last one in, jumping aboard just as a wave of creatures rushed their position. Go, 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 he shouted. The walker lurched into motion. Its 6 legs found purchase on the volcanic rock, and it began moving with surprising speed. The crystalline predators chased them for a while, but the walker's pace proved too much. Eventually, the creatures gave up and faded back into the darkness. Inside the passenger compartment, Prill finally allowed herself to breathe. They were moving. They were alive. The humans had actually done it, but the journey wasn't over. 8 kilometers of hostile terrain still lay ahead, and the temperature continued to drop. Through the canopy, Prill could see the storm clouds gathering overhead. The acid rain would start soon. Hero drove the walker with steady concentration, navigating around obstacles and rough terrain. In the back, the other humans were checking their equipment and catching their breath. They looked exhausted. Their suits showed damage from the fighting and the environment, yet nobody complained. They just did what needed to be done. Storm's hitting, Jimmy announced as the first drops of acid rain began to fall. The liquid hissed where it struck the walker's armored hull. Hull's holding, but we need to reach the ship soon. The walker pushed through the storm. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Hero relied on instruments and instinct to keep them moving in the right direction. The acid rain came down harder, eating at seals and exposed metal. A loud crack echoed through the vehicle. One of the legs had suffered a stress fracture from the combination of gravity, terrain, and corrosion. We've got a problem, Amy said, running diagnostics. Leg 3 is compromised. If it fails completely, we stop moving. How far to the ship? Nadia asked. 3 kilometers. Can we make it? Amy was quiet for a moment. Maybe, if we reduce speed and don't hit any more rough terrain. And if the leg fails, then we walk the rest of the way and hope we make it before the cold or acid kills us. Prill listened to this exchange with growing horror. The humans had risked everything to save her team, and now their vehicle was failing. If they had to abandon the walker, carrying 7 Quinn through the storm would be nearly impossible. She looked at her team, at Denel, who was barely conscious, at the others who were too weak to help themselves. The humans would try to save them anyway. She knew that now. They'd carry the Quinn on their backs through acid and cold and gravity, and they'd die trying if that's what it took. The thought made her want to cry. The walker limped forward, its damaged leg grinding with each step. 2 kilometers to go, then 1. The defiant dawn appeared through the storm like a beacon of hope, its lights cutting through the darkness. The damaged leg finally gave out 50 meters from the ship. Everyone out, Nadia ordered. Amy, you and Hero get the Quinn aboard. Diego, Jimmy, you're with me on defense. Move fast, people. The humans exploded into action. Amy and Hero grabbed Quinn scientists and ran for the ship despite the crushing gravity. Diego set up to cover them, his weapon tracking for any predators that might have followed through the storm. Prill found herself being carried by Hero, his arms steady despite his exhaustion. The acid rain fell all around them, hissing where it hit his damaged suit. He didn't slow down. One by one, the Quinn were loaded onto the defiant dawn. The humans followed, Diego backing in last while still watching for threats. The loading ramp sealed shut. Warmth flooded back. Safety, finally. Prill collapsed onto the deck, her body shaking with relief and shock. Around her, the other Quinn scientists were crying or laughing or just staring in disbelief. They'd survived. The Deathworlders had brought them through hell and brought them home. The medical bay hummed with activity as Hero worked on the Quinn scientists. The defiant dawn had left Hero 9 behind, climbing through the acid atmosphere and back into the safety of space. Now came the careful work of treating injuries and reversing the damage done by exposure to that terrible moon. Prill lay in a recovery pod, warm for the first time in days. Sensors monitored her vital signs while the pod's systems worked to restore her body temperature and replenish depleted nutrients. Through the transparent lid, she could see Hero moving between patients with tireless efficiency. He looked exhausted. They all did. The humans had removed their damaged exosuits and now wore simple medical scrubs. Without the armor, they looked smaller, more vulnerable. Yet Prill had seen what they could do. She'd never think of them as vulnerable again. Hero noticed her watching and came over. "How are you feeling?" "Alive," Prill said. Her voice was stronger now, though still shaky. "Because of you?" "Because of all of you. Just doing our job." He checked her readings and nodded with satisfaction. "Your core temperature is back to normal. Oxygen levels are good. You'll be fully recovered in a few days. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." Prill had been thinking about this question since they left Harrow 9. It seemed important, fundamental somehow. "Why did you come for us?" "We're strangers. Different species." "You risked your lives, risked your ship. What did you gain?" Hero pulled up a chair and sat down. He was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. "On Earth, we have a concept called no one left behind. It came from our military traditions originally. When soldiers went into battle, they promised to bring everyone home. Dead or alive, nobody gets abandoned. But we're not your soldiers. We're not even your species." "No," Hero agreed. "But your people. And you needed help." "That's enough." Prill struggled to understand. "In my studies of galactic civilizations, most species operate on reciprocal benefit. You help others when it advantages you. What you did has no logical benefit." Hero smiled. "Logic isn't everything. Earth spent millions of years trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, ice ages. We survived by taking care of each other, by making sure nobody faced danger alone. That instinct doesn't turn off just because we reach space. You turned suffering into empathy," Prill said slowly. "I suppose we did. We know what it's like to be helpless and scared. We remember what it's like to face death and need someone to help. So when we hear a distress call, there's no debate. We go, we help. That's who we decided to be." Tears formed in Prill's large eyes. In Quinn culture, emotional displays were private, but she couldn't help it. "Thank you. For saving us. For being the kind of people who would save us." Hero patted her hand gently. "Get some rest. The council wants to talk to you when you're feeling better." Admiral Reeves scheduled a debriefing session. 2 days later, Prill stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session. She'd never addressed the full council before. Normally, a junior researcher like her would never be invited to speak at this level. But the Harrow 9 rescue had changed everything. The council chamber was packed with representatives from dozens of species. Some looked curious, others skeptical, a few openly hostile. The human delegation sat to one side, Admiral Reeves looking composed and professional. The session moderator, a Veln named Whisper, addressed Prill directly. "Research Scientist Prill, you have requested this opportunity to testify about your rescue from Harrow 9. The council recognizes you." Prill activated her translator and began. "Honored council members, I wish to provide my account of the rescue operation conducted by the Terran Expeditionary Force. When our vessel crashed on Harrow 9, I believed we would die. The environmental conditions made rescue impossible by any reasonable standard." She paused, letting that sink in. The humans did not use a reasonable standard. They walked through conditions that should have killed them. They fought predators while carrying our injured. They modified their equipment on the fly to meet our biological needs. They risked their lives for 7 Quinn scientists they'd never met. "Your gratitude is noted," the Chiric delegate Tillisk said. "However, the humans took extreme risks. What if they had failed? What if we had lost both the Quinn research team and the human rescue team?" "But they didn't fail," Prill replied. "And that's my point. Before this, I thought I understood humans from the academic records. Warriors, survivors, conquerors. Those descriptions are accurate but incomplete. They're also the only species I've encountered who experienced genuine hardship and chose to ensure others wouldn't face it alone." She turned to look directly at the council members. "I studied human history before this mission. Their planet suffered 5 mass extinction events. They evolved alongside predators that hunted them. They developed intelligence while running from things with claws and teeth. When they finally built civilization, they immediately started fighting each other in terrible wars." "And this is supposed to make us trust them?" one delegate asked. "No," Prill said. "This is supposed to make you understand them. Despite all that violence and trauma, they created the concept of humanitarian aid. They invented search and rescue as a profession. They built entire organizations dedicated to helping strangers in need. They took their worst instincts and chose to become better." Admiral Reeves was watching her with an unreadable expression. Prill hoped she was explaining this correctly. "When Captain Okonkwo's team reached our crashed vessel, My first thought was that they'd come to loot our research, to take what they wanted from our bodies. I was wrong. Dr. Tanaka's first words to me were gentle and kind. He treated us with care and compassion even though we were weak and useless to him. Whisper pulsed with orange interest. What are you proposing, research scientist Prill? A formal recognition of humanity's unique capabilities, Prill said. The Council maintains various specialized roles. The Tull handle communication networks. The Chirrut manage food distribution. The Veln coordinate scientific research. I propose we recognize humans as our emergency response specialists. The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates supported the idea immediately. Others raised concerns about giving Deathworlders official authority. A few questioned whether humanity would even accept such a role. Admiral Reeves stood and the chamber quieted. The Terran Expeditionary Force appreciates the recognition, but we don't need official status to help people. We'll respond to distress calls regardless of Council authorization. That's not politics. That's just who we are. Tillisk clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. That's precisely why you should have official status. You're going to respond to emergencies anyway. At least let us coordinate with you properly. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, the proposal passed with 73% approval. Humanity was officially recognized as the Galactic Council's emergency response specialists. They would receive priority distress signals and support for rescue operations. After the session ended, Prill found Hero in one of the station's observation lounges. He was staring out at the stars, looking thoughtful. Congratulations, she said. You're now officially the galaxy's rescue service. Hero laughed. Thanks, I think. Though honestly, nothing really changes for us. We were going to keep doing this anyway. I know. That's what makes you special. Prill moved to stand beside him. Can I ask one more question? Always. What happens next? Now that the Council knows what you can do? Hero was quiet for a moment. More distress calls, probably. More impossible rescues. More people who need help in places where help shouldn't be possible. He smiled. Sounds like job security to me. You could say no. Refuse dangerous missions. Let others handle the risks. We could, Hero agreed. But then we wouldn't be human. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years and we're still here. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being there for each other when things get bad. Prill looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of civilizations and species and worlds. I used to think space was empty and cold. But it's not, is it? Not with humans out here. It's still pretty cold, Hero said with a grin. But yeah, we try to add some warmth where we can. In the distance, a priority alert beacon lit up on the station's communications array. Another distress call from somewhere in the outer rim. The details would come soon. Hero saw it and sighed. Duty calls. Want to grab some food first? I'm starving. You just came back from a rescue mission. Don't you need to rest? I'll rest later. Right now, someone needs help. He stretched and headed for the door. Come on, I'll introduce you to human cuisine. Fair warning, though, we tend to overspice everything. Prill followed him, marveling at his casual attitude toward danger and duty. The Deathworlders had changed everything. The galaxy had always had heroes, but now it had humans. It would never be the same. 6 months had changed everything and nothing. Diego stood in the training facility on Luna, watching a new batch of recruits struggle through simulated high-gravity scenarios. Most were human, but a few aliens had volunteered for the program. That was new. One recruit in particular caught his attention, a young Chirrut named Syl who stood barely a meter tall and weighed almost nothing even in Earth gravity. She was attempting to carry a rescue dummy through a 2G simulation and failing badly. Diego walked over as she fell for the 3rd time. Take 5 minutes, catch your breath. Syl's mandibles clicked with frustration. I can do this. I just need to try again. You can't do it, Diego said bluntly. Your physiology won't allow it. The gravity will always be too much. Then why did you accept me into the program? The translator captured her bitter disappointment. Because rescue work isn't just about strength. It's about heart. You keep getting up. You keep trying even when you know you'll fail. That's what we need. He gestured to the other recruits. Half of them are stronger than me. But strength without courage is useless. You've got courage. What good is courage if I can't carry people? You'll find a way to help. Diego said. We all do. Now rest up. Next exercise in 10 minutes. Across the solar system on the orbital station above Earth, Prill was giving a presentation to a packed auditorium. Her research had shifted focus after Harrow 9. Now she studied human psychology and survival adaptations, trying to understand what made them work. The key insight, she explained to the mixed audience of scientists, is that humans don't just survive hostile environments, they adapt them into advantages. They turned their predators into hunting partners, creating dogs. They turned their dangerous weather into energy sources. They even turned their tendency toward violence into organized sports and competitive games. A tall researcher chimed with a question that sounded like crystal bells. But how does this explain their rescue behavior? Saving others provides no survival advantage. That's where you're wrong, Prill replied. For humans, community survival is personal survival. They evolved in groups. Alone, a human is weak. Together, they conquered their entire planet. Helping others isn't altruism for them. It's enlightened self-interest that became cultural instinct. She pulled up footage from the Harrow 9 rescue. The audience watched in silence as the humans fought through impossible conditions. Notice how they communicate constantly, Prill pointed out. Notice how they cover each other, how they take turns at dangerous tasks. This isn't training. This is millions of years of evolution saying we survive together or we don't survive at all. They simply expanded their definition of we to include the entire galaxy. The presentation ended to thoughtful silence. Afterward, dozens of researchers approached Prill with questions. The academic community had become obsessed with understanding humanity. It was the hottest research topic in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on a human colony in the Centauri system, Nadia was reviewing mission reports when her comm unit beeped. Priority alert. She opened the message and felt her stomach drop. A colony transport ship carrying refugees from 7 different species had suffered catastrophic engine failure near a pulsar. The radiation levels were climbing. Time to impact with the pulsar's gravity well was estimated at 19 hours. 30,000 beings were going to die. The message had been flagged across all human emergency channels. Every available rescue ship was being called up. Nadia pulled up the mission parameters. The radiation alone would kill most species within hours. The gravitational shear near the pulsar would tear apart standard vessels. Rescue seemed mathematically impossible. She started making calls anyway. 2 hours later, Admiral Reeves was coordinating the largest rescue operation in human history. 17 ships were en route to the crisis point, including the Defiant Dawn with its original crew. But even that wouldn't be enough. We need more ships, Reeves said, studying the tactical display. We can't evacuate 30,000 people with what we have. Admiral, her communication officer said hesitantly, we're receiving volunteer requests from non-human vessels. Reeves looked up in surprise. Show me. The list scrolled across the screen. A Quinn medical ship with Prill listed as chief medical officer. 3 Chirrut supply vessels modified for passenger transport. 2 Veln science ships with experimental shielding. Even a tall, crystalline vessel that could theoretically withstand the radiation better than metal hulls. The message attached to Prill's volunteer request was simple. You came for us. We come for them. Reeves felt something catch in her throat. She cleared it and activated the fleet-wide channel. All volunteer vessels, your assistance is accepted with gratitude. Coordinates are being transmitted now. Be advised, this is a high-risk operation. Nobody will think less of you if you withdraw. Nobody withdrew. The fleet assembled near the stricken colony ship like a gathering of old friends. Human vessels worked alongside alien ships, sharing tactics and equipment. Prill's medical ship coordinated with Hero to prepare for mass casualties. The Chirrut vessels worked with Amy to modify their cargo systems for passenger evacuation. Syl was there too, aboard one of the Chirrut ships. Diego had recommended her for field deployment despite her physical limitations. She was coordinating rescue logistics, managing the flow of evacuees between ships. The operation was chaos and beauty combined. Humans worked in the high radiation zones, their biology more resistant to the damage. Aliens handled the delicate work of keeping frightened refugees calm. Veln science officers calculated trajectories, while Tal engineers reinforced hulls on the fly. Nadia piloted the Defiant Dawn through gravitational shear that would have destroyed most ships. Jimmy had modified the engines to handle the stress, but it was still brutal. The ship groaned and shuddered as she positioned it alongside the colony transport. "Airlock sealed," Diego reported. "We can take 500 people this run. Load them up. We've got maybe 3 more runs before the radiation cooks us." They made 4 runs, then 5. The Defiant Dawn's hull was glowing from radiation exposure and heat stress. Systems were failing across the board, but they kept going. On the 6th run, the colony ship's hull finally gave out. Explosive decompression killed the remaining evacuees in seconds. Nadia stared at the wreckage, feeling the weight of those deaths. They'd saved 28,000 people, lost 2,000. The numbers should have made her feel successful. Instead, she just felt tired and sad. "All ships, begin withdrawal," Reeves ordered. "The pulsar's gravity is getting too strong. We need to leave now." The fleet turned and burned hard away from the pulsar. Behind them, the wreckage of the colony ship spiraled into the gravitational well and was crushed into exotic matter. 3 days later, the fleet limped into the nearest station for repairs and medical treatment. The radiation exposure had been severe. Dozens of rescuers were in critical condition, including Jimmy, who'd stayed in the engine room for too long. But they'd saved 28,000 lives. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to recognize the rescue operation. Representatives from all 7 species who'd been aboard the colony ship spoke, expressing gratitude that transcended words. Admiral Reeves stood before the council with Prill beside her. The Quinn scientist had taken radiation damage to her sensitive tissues. She'd be recovering for months, but she was alive and had helped save thousands. "This rescue proved something important," Reeves said. "Humans didn't save those people alone. We worked with dozens of species, each contributing their unique abilities. The Quinn provided medical expertise. The Chirrut handled logistics. The Veln calculated the physics. The Tal reinforced our ships. We succeeded together." Prill stepped forward. 6 months ago, I thought Deathworlders were anomalies, dangerous outsiders who didn't fit the galactic norm. I was wrong. Humans aren't anomalies. They're teachers. They showed us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's facing fear for others. They proved that the strongest beings aren't those who survive alone, but those who ensure everyone survives together. The council chamber was silent. Then slowly applause began. It started with the Quinn delegation and spread to include every species present. Even the most skeptical members were clapping. Later, in a quiet medical bay, Hero sat beside Jimmy's recovery bed. The pilot would live, but he'd need weeks of treatment to repair the radiation damage. "Was it worth it?" Jimmy asked weakly. 28,000 people are alive," Hero replied. "You tell me." "I'd do it again." "I know. That's what makes you human." Jimmy smiled and closed his eyes. "We didn't save everyone, though. 2,000 died. We saved who we could. That's all anyone can do." Across the galaxy, the story of the Pulsar rescue spread. Young beings of a dozen species heard about the mixed fleet that had faced impossible odds. Some were inspired to join rescue services. Others became doctors or engineers or pilots, all motivated by the same idea. Nobody gets left behind. Not anymore. Syl graduated from the training program 3 months later. Diego personally handed her the certification. She still couldn't lift heavy objects in high gravity, but she could coordinate complex rescues, manage resources under pressure, and inspire others with her determination. She was assigned to a mixed-species rescue ship with 2 humans, a Veln and another Chirrut. They called themselves the Second Wave, because they came after the first responders to help with recovery and rebuilding. On Earth, children learned about the Harrow 9 rescue in school. It became a cultural touchstone, a reminder of who humanity chose to be. The phrase "one SOS" echoed through space entered common language, meaning that no call for help would go unanswered. In the Galactic Council archives, Prill's research was filed under essential reading. Future generations would study how humans had changed the galaxy, not through conquest or wealth, but through simple, stubborn compassion. And somewhere in the darkness of space, another distress beacon activated. Another ship in trouble, another crew facing death, another desperate call into the void. The call was received simultaneously by dozens of vessels. Human ships, Quinn medical frigates, Chirrut transports, Veln science ships, they all changed course immediately, converging on the distress signal, because that's what the galaxy did now. When someone called for help, everyone came running. The Deathworlders had taught them that much. Admiral Reeves received the distress notification on her personal comm. She was in a strategy meeting, but she stood immediately. Her staff knew what that meant. "Admiral?" her aide asked. "Someone needs help," Reeves said simply. "Alert the fleet. We're moving out. But we're still repairing damage from the last operation. Then we'll make do with what we have." She headed for the door, pausing only to look back. "They sent an SOS, we answer. That's not negotiable. That's who we are." She left to coordinate another impossible rescue, another race against death, another chance to prove that even in the cold darkness of space, compassion could survive and thrive. Behind her, the aide smiled and started making the necessary calls. The galaxy had learned an important lesson from the Deathworlders. Survival wasn't about being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. It was about being there for each other when everything went wrong. It was about hearing the call and coming, no matter the cost. It was about turning survival instinct into salvation for all. The Deathworlders had come from a world that tried to kill them for millions of years. They'd emerged scarred but not broken, traumatized but not defeated. And they decided that since they knew what it meant to face death alone, they'd make sure nobody else had to. One SOS had echoed through space. The Deathworlders heard it and came, and they kept coming. Again and again for anyone who needed them. That was their legacy. That was their gift to the stars.